Hi, I'm Sally Kirkman from sallykirkman.com, and I'm here with my dear friend and fellow astrologer, Christina Rodenbeck from oxfordastrologer.com. Together, we are Astrology Talk Podcast, and we're here today with one of our longer podcasts that's about the month ahead, looking at the astrology of the month ahead, what's coming up during Capricorn season. But also we take a look at what's been and gone. And we do what's called retrodiction, looking back at the month that's gone to see how the astrology has played out. So, Christina, how are you? How are things with you this month?
Okay, I'm just trying to keep my feet on the ground in this very tumultuous and rather exciting period, actually. Yeah, so and I'm just looking back at what's been happening this month, and it's been in the world, and it's been quite a time, hasn't it?
It has. It has. What's stood out for you from what's been going on?
Um, okay, well, actually, I can boil it down to, in the news. So personally, it's been, one of my daughters has now gone to France, which is quite a big deal for me. And one of them has come home from university, which is great. So that has happened. And also I have switched from Twitter to Blue Sky, which is quite a big deal because that Twitter was my go-to. And that feels the right thing to do with Pluto going into Aquarius, and as a sort of like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this Pluto going into Aquarius. I'm finishing off something that I have done for years. And so those little things. But in the news, there are basically, I would say, three things that really stand out for me. One is the reopening of Notre Dame, which we can talk about in a minute. The other one is the freeing of the prisoners in Syria, and obviously the overthrow of Assad, which is huge. And the third one is this shooting in the States of the healthcare chief. Those are the ones that I've actually looked into the astrology of, but there are so many more things happening. For example, what is happening in Georgia, where there's a sort of upright, people's demonstrating all continuously. What is happening in South Korea, where the government, they had martial law for 5 minutes and then it went away again. And that's not to mention what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in Sudan. Still, I can't remember. I read something about Sudan, more terrible things. But some of these things give me a lot of hope for the future. And what happened in Romania as well, which was that they had an election and then they said, actually, this was so interfered with by the Russians, we're going to have to rerun it, which is amazing. So there's been a lot of stuff happening politically, which is absolutely fascinating in the last just few weeks to do. And it clicks with the astrology so powerfully.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? There's one symbol of this. Pluto moved into Aquarius on November 19th, and one thing is this power to the people. You can see that in quite a few of the examples you're talking about, the people power coming through. For me, just on a personal level as well, I was kind of really intrigued I was on retreat in India, as I think you know, because I mentioned it last month. And our retreat began on November the 20th, so the day after Pluto moved into Aquarius. So I was living with a community in India, which felt very Aquarius. And the main thing that, was no news, no social media, switching off, which I just thought, we're going to have Pluto in Aquarius in the next 20 years. And I did think, God, I love this. I love being in community. I love, really having a blackout time, which is very Pluto in a way, from the new social media. And I thought, I'm going to do this at least once a year, just take a step back and then come back to the world in a way, refresh, recharge. So on a personal level, it felt, really symbolic to be doing that as Pluto moved into Aquarius, this new beginnings.
Was it just social media, or was it all media that you actually backed out? Presumably you didn't have the news either. Just
No
like
news,
normal?
no
Yeah.
news, no news. So I mean, I'm kind of, playing catch up on the news as well, and I probably missed quite a bit. Does it matter? Maybe not a great deal.
No,
But
it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
it doesn't matter. I mean, I did come back, and for me, the one that really kind of stood out for me was the assassination of the CEO of the United Healthcare, and what happened after that on social media.
Mm-hmm.
On and also in the media as well. I mean, and a lot of different people reporting on it, but a lot of people weren't shocked by it, and a lot of people were kind of bravo. The health insurance in America has, it's not paid out a lot of times. So people saying, therefore, it's contributed to this death, that death, this death, and seeing the sort of outpouring of people, almost in a way, saying, well, it was going to happen. And then also from that, other health insurance companies have taken down their leadership teams. If you go on some of the about pages, I think it doesn't say who's in charge because of a fear of it happening again.
Which is
So,
like,
I mean, yeah, go on.
which is like the Pluto putting on his helmet of invisibility.
Yes.
So now we don't know who these plutocrats are.
Yes. Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on the the shooting was fascinating for a lot of reasons, partly because it was like the guy who did it, whose name I now forget, was very organized in the message that he wanted to convey. It was done with Mercury and Mars retrograde, I think. And Mercury was in Sagittarius, and he actually wrote on the bullet casings, deny, delay. Oh, I can't remember the other one. These are the words that are used in these insurance claims to stop people getting their money. So the idea of words on bullet casings is literally Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, which is the sign of like the archer of shooting. And Mars retrograde, Mars was in Leo opposite to Pluto. So and this is why astrology is an incredibly complex and beautiful way of seeing the universe. So Pluto's, oh yes, it's power to the people, but it's also the plutocrat in the giant organization, right? Which is Aquarian. Yeah. So the Mars is opposite that. So the shooter is the Mars, right? The shooter is the lone person against the machine. He's going against the machine, and the giant machine is also that Pluto in Aquarius. Yeah, which is really fascinating, because then you flip it around and you see that actually Pluto in Aquarius is also, for example, there's people demonstrating in Georgia. That is definitely a people power thing. So what we're seeing is so the lone gunman against the giant corporation is Mars and Leo, lone gunman, taking revenge, because I think we'll find that he's not only has his family suffered from this, but maybe he personally has had something that he hasn't had the system is terrible. It's cruel in America. It's a cruel system, and it's unnecessary, folks, because it's not like that in the rest of the world, in the rest of the developed world. Yeah. It's a terrible meat grinder is what the system has become. And that, I think that particular company had managed to cut its claimants' payouts by like 20% by using AI as well. So, there's a whole AI element of one human being against the AI, you know? Yeah. So it's an amazing piece of symbolism. The whole thing is archetypal, and that guy he's super fit, gotta say. He looks plutonic to me, though. at the same time as all this. You know, he's dark, he's handsome. He's very fit, so he's got this sort of he's got a Mars Pluto energy about him.
Yeah, he has.
Which is a warrior as well, and he's a warrior who is sacrificed himself.
Yeah,
because he definitely was expecting to get caught.
Yeah.
So he's sacrificed himself for a greater cause, which is also this Mars retrograde. As I will sacrifice myself, I will be brave. It's a kind of incredible bravery that's been shown. And you know, the sort of and then of course you think about the individual who's actually been shot, who is a person.
Yes, a human being.
Yeah. A human being has actually been shot. To which the response of a lot of people on this insurance will be, yeah, well, I'm a human being too, and you know, they let my husband, father, son rot.
Yeah. I mean, we know, don't we, that violence isn't the answer. And kind of what's interesting with the symbolism of this is we've got 2 more Mars-Pluto oppositions in 2025. We've got one on January the 3rd, which we'll be talking about, and also one on April 27th. So this isn't going away, is it? The events are going to be playing out over the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, we can say, well, you know, that gun violence isn't the answer, but there were more warriors, okay, who were actually doing something during this period as well, which were these Syrian warriors. I think they started on the 27th of November to retaking Syria. And they, and I was fascinated by the liberation of the prisons. So people have been incarcerated in Syria for 20, 30, 40 years. Some of these people by the regime. It's an evil regime. You can defend it if you like, but you know, it's evil as far as I'm concerned. Like they gassed their own people. I remember when they were using barrel bombs. It's torture
and violence, isn't it? It's torture and violence a lot.
Yeah, they used rape as a method of oppressing the population. And these prisons were, some of them were many, many layers underground with no windows. So we have this wave, right, of the warriors come. And then again, it's amazing astrology, because on the day that this is happening, there's a conjunction of Venus comes into Aquarius, makes a conjunction with Pluto. Ceres comes into Aquarius. The moon comes into Aquarius. And they all make a conjunction with Pluto. Why is that important? Because Pluto is the lord of the underworld, right? And Ceres coming there, I've written about this before many times on my blog, if you're interested. Ceres, Pluto, when you have them working together, you get liberation from underground stuff. So, for example, all of those girls like Fritzl, for example, who were kept underground by bad people, right? There were ones in the States and there was one in Austria. Every time they've been liberated, there's been a Ceres-Pluto interaction. Same with miners being found. Same with those boys in Thailand, those cavers. And this was people being liberated from underground, pouring out. And it's at 0 degrees Aquarius. And it's telling us something about that 0 degree. It's a really amazingly positive moment, a moment of joy for Syrians, but also just, I mean, it's like this thing that has been hidden is cut open, and all the sadness is able to come out.
I mean, it's going to be, we're talking, the other astrology that I noted on that was, it was all around when Mercury turned retrograde as well, November 26th, wasn't it? So it was around then. And of course, we're talking before the full moon on December the 15th, this podcast, although it'll come out after. And Mercury turns direct as well on that full moon. So you would expect events on that full moon, December the 15th, to be pivotal as well. To what happens next. So, I mean, keep eyes on that as well. But yeah, extraordinary astrology. I mean, just extraordinary. Pluto's lair, underground, isn't it? God of the underworld. And this liberation, as you say.
And the third thing that I really, really struck me was the reopening of Notre Dame.
Yes.
So that also is Notre Dame is Our Lady, right? Which is often associated with the planet Venus. And that was also on the Pluto-Venus conjunction. What is Pluto but about things rising from the ashes? This is a phoenix planet. It's a planet of things being burned to the ground and then rising again. And Notre Dame is very, very beautiful as well, which is Venusian. And it was a really powerful, sacred event of I would say, I mean, hope is a bit of a cheap way of putting it, but it's a symbol that some things are eternal and can be brought back to life. It was recreated because of teamwork. So massive amount of teamwork by the French. They did it incredibly quickly. It took them 5 years. And they also used a lot of science to make something old new. So the reason that they could reconstruct it was because they'd taken such great measurements just before.
Yeah.
So very precise scientific measurements of the entire cathedral had just been taken because they were about to do some reconstruction work. So they had perfect measurements, which I think is very Aquarian.
Yeah. It is, and I mean, you're talking the symbolism of it, the teamwork, the scientific measurements. So another incredible symbol of which is involving this Pluto and Aquarius. I mean, it's great, actually, isn't it? The things that we're seeing that feel so powerful around it, that do, moving into, particularly after what happened when Pluto went back into Capricorn and kind of shocked us all the beginning of November. We are moving into kind of this new era, and it's always so important when one of the slow moving planets changes sign to see what's coming to light.
To see what's coming while it's at 0 degrees as well. So all of this stuff that we're talking about is stuff at 0 degrees Aquarius.
Yeah.
All of those, that triple conjunction, quadruple conjunction, really, if you include the moon, is really, really important that weekend of the 6th, 7th of the 6th and 7th of November, or 6th, 7th, 8th of November, around those days when these things that you get that grouping of of female energy or feminine energy around Pluto.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff. So shall we take a look at what's coming up?
Oh, I suppose so. Oh, well, shall we talk about Capricorns and the solstice and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and that's, there's, when you were talking, actually, it did make me think about the solstice. I mean, we have the solstice when the sun moves into Capricorn, December 21st, which is, longest day, shortest night, or vice versa, depending where you live. And for me, I mean, here in the Northern Hemisphere, I kind of love this time of year, moving towards the festive season. And for me, one of the pure symbols of the solstice is bringing light into the darkness. I love the going into sort of Advent to the festive season. And I've just put up my Christmas tree, with lights. And I love putting it on in the dark. I love having the lights twinkling out, and sitting down in the evening. And always at the moment, and again, moving into the solstice, this wanting to light candles and bring light into the darkness, which I think is such a powerful symbol for me of this solstice, the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, when the sun moves into Capricorn.
Yeah, what do you make of this particular solstice, Sally? I noticed that it's kind of making a square to the nodes.
Okay, we don't have a chart for it.
No.
Do you have a chart for it that we can look at or not?
Oh, I could. Yeah, I can put one up. Um, I always follow this with charts while we're talking. Um, can you see that, Sally?
I can, Christina.
So
So
that,
everyone else will be able to who's watching on our YouTube channel too.
yeah. So that's for the 21st of
Mm,
December in Oxford, which is where I always cast things for.
mm, mm.
And it is a really, Sally and I were talking before this, and we were saying, actually, this feels like, aside from from the Mars Pluto opposition and a bit of a square between Jupiter and Saturn, it actually feels like a pretty calm, much calmer Christmas season.
Yes, it does. It does. There's Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. It's in Pisces at the moment, which Saturn in Pisces, there's something kind of gentle about that for me. I think it's a nicer placing for cold Saturn in the star sign that's about compassion, and emotion. So, I mean, and the Saturn does play out moving forward. Um, and also moving into January, we get the run of planets into the sort of more introvert signs, Earth and water. So Capricorn, Earth, Saturn and Pisces, water as well. But there's more of that shift going on. So, and we've just started this huge retrograde phase, which doesn't really end until mid-April. We've had the Mercury retrograde, Mars is retrograde until the end of February. And for me, with retrograde planets, it's often a time, like I did in India, a time to kind of slow down, take your foot off the accelerator, retreat, take the pace slow. So, yeah, there's different symbols that say, let's go gently, slowly moving forward. And I think that kind of feels a bit like the theme of this solstice, with the moon in Virgo and other earth sign as well, although in a huge opposition to Saturn, I have
Yeah,
to say.
it's really, really like solid, isn't it? It's like
Yes.
they're really opposed. But that's okay, I
Yeah.
think. I mean,
Yeah.
this is you can sometimes say an opposition it can be an alliance or a rivalry.
Mm,
It depends how it works out.
yeah.
Right? And this is an alliance or a rivalry across quite a sacred axis.
Yeah. 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 It's and with oppositions as well for me. I mean, I often talk about this with clients. You can see them as sort of a push pull, as a conflict, or with oppositions in astrology. I really like looking at ways you can harness the energy of both and use them to work together to complement one another. Um, and the moon and Saturn can learn a lot from one another, actually. They can learn a lot. It feels like there's some comfort there in that opposition. And as you said, it feels like a very sacred space, moving forward into Capricorn season.
Yeah. I mean, it's the solstice chart can sometimes say something about the coming 3 months. And it does feel like it's a moment of kind of quite balanced. I note that Jupiter is on the point of that between the two. It's on the T square,
Yeah.
Jupiter retrograde, which is
Mm-hmm.
actually ruling the Saturn. Um, and it's in Gemini. This is a sign of conversation, big, big conversations, big talks.
Mm,
And that is important during this season
mm,
coming up, is to have big conversations, really wide ranging, and to try, and this is part of the thing that we're still in, this energy that we're still in with the Mercury Jupiter mutual reception, to try and understand the other person's point of view.
yeah. 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 I agree. And I think that is also actually part of the theme of the Jupiter Saturn square with Jupiter and Gemini, the sign of communication. And the square aspect perfects on December 24th. This is kind of a key theme of this year. I mean, they got together, I think it was in August. They're going to get together again in early degrees of Cancer and Aries, I think it's in April or June, is it coming up? June 2025. So it's a long-ranging square, but the fact that it's exact on December the 24th, they are so different, these two planets. And I think they are about what you believe. They're about your faith. So open up conversations in a way that is open, in a way that is kind of open-hearted, open mind, with an open mind. I mean, it can often, moving into the festive season, it can be a tricky time. I'm already talking to clients who have got issues coming up moving into the festive season. Who's going to be with who, and getting together with family you don't always get on with, you don't see eye to eye with. I think with these two big planets working together, go into the festive season with an open heart and an open mind, and try and understand one another. I mean, even though it's a square aspect, I think it's quite hopeful.
Well, I think it's a good aspect. It's dynamic. It may mean something comes out of this. And it's really significant that on the day of the solstice, this opening of this new season, because that's what Capricorn is. It's a cardinal sign. It begins the season, the winter, at midwinter. So at this midwinter point, we have these planets are actually in conversation, so you could see this as being around a table, that you've got the Jupiter person and the Saturn person and the moon and Mercury, and they're having this conversation.
Yeah.
And they're actually in, it can be very constructive, I suppose. And Mercury by the solstice has only just gone direct. So Mercury's been sort of gathering information and having a little think for the previous few weeks in December, and now is ready to share some information as well. This is what I found out. This is what I think, and this is how I've changed my mind. I think that's particularly significant for Sagittarius, actually, which is where this Mercury has been digging around. And for Gemini, you're going to be having big conversations, Gemini, and you may have a lot to share, but you should be listening. And that's important with all of these placements is the listening. And Virgo may find themselves really having to listen to all these people.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that it's all the mutable, flexible signs. If anything, they are the signs that are more likely to be better at being tolerant and being open and being able to see, they all have this sense of duality, being able to see different ideas, different opinions, and kind of having a sense of understanding around that. So maybe it is the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces are going to be leading the way into festive season. They're the ones to get people talking. They're the ones to try and bring people together in a way, moving forward.
Yeah, and Pisces, understand that sometimes you are a parent, even if you're an 18-year-old, you're a parent, you're the older person. No matter how young you are, you're the person with the wise head. And you can hold the space. Actually. So it's interesting also about the mutable signs are also the ones that don't have like the rigid boundaries, where, because it's flow. What they do is they flow from one season to the next. So you always get the mutable sign at the end of seasons. And then we go into Capricorn, as we are now. We're going into Capricorn, which is not necessarily a sign with it's a sign with strong hierarchies, but not the rigid boundaries that you get with the fixed signs.
Yeah. I do like this solstice chart moving forward. I do.
Yeah.
I do. Our general feeling of the month is a positive one to, and the sun in Capricorn wants to keep things steady, doesn't it? It wants it holds on to tradition as well. There's, the traditions are important, the sense of legacy, history, the past as well, all wrapped up in Capricorn. I mean, we haven't really talked about Capricorn itself, but it is an interesting star sign because it's, there's often the myth around it is that all Capricorns, they're ambitious, they're workaholics, they just go for it, they're hard in a way. But actually it's one of the earth signs, and it's one of my favorite times of year. And there's this soulful side to Capricorn as well. I always think I just want to, go up a mountain and do meditation and be in solitude and be in nature. When the sun moves into Capricorn. Actually, I think I am going off for a walk around the solstice into the hills. So I'll be doing just that. But being quiet and silence, the silence of this time of year as well.
And it's interesting that comes out of Sagittarius season, which can be is the festive one.
Yeah, it is.
Where you're going, because that is, Sagittarius is celebratory side, and you come into the calm of Capricorn, but also, or it seems like calm, but Capricorn's also a really interesting sign in terms of it's half goat, half fish or snake, depending on what you look at. It's a strange, and traditionally this is the period of misrule. You have the Lord of Misrule. You have the 12 days of Christmas when the world turns upside down, and things are, things are not what they seem, or think the bottom comes to the top. It's topsy-turvy time.
Yeah.
And I find that really, really fascinating. That's actually something that happens in Capricorn season. The fool becomes the king, and the king becomes the fool.
Yeah. Which is it's kind of the goat, isn't it? The goat. It's sort of, there's a mischievousness about the goat, I think. But it is. I mean, and it's a time of when you can, in ancient times, and probably probably now as well, where some people would go out and just absolutely let their hair down and drink too much and party, and and not think about work, take time off work. For a lot of people, it's festivities, it's festive season. It's kind of like, right, I can go wild and let it all hang out at the end of the year, and then start over in January.
Yeah, and is this a wise thing to do? I don't know.
Well, I'm going to be up a hill, so
yeah.
Not on the day itself. I will be festiving with it's going to be, I've got a big Christmas organized. Actually, it was interesting seeing all those different planets together. It feels a bit like that, people coming from all over gathering together this year. So I think there'll be a lot of chatter and fun going on. So should we have a look at the new moon chart, which is actually leading us into 2025?
Yeah, can you get that up?
I think so. Let's see. Is technology working? It is.
Cool.
Yeah. So this is, it's an interesting date for a new moon on the 30th of December, the day before New Year's Eve, and just the time just before the new moon and on the new moon itself, when there's darkness, traditionally a time to rest and retreat before kind of making a wish on the crescent moon, which will actually this year probably be on January the 1st, when most people first see it, the crescent moon. And I love that time to make a wish, which will be right at the beginning of 2025. So it feels like a pivotal time to have a new moon, actually. It's 1 year ends, and then there's this new beginning.
Yeah, it actually looks like, for a change, actually, it's quite a good time to make a New Year's resolution. Just on New Year's Eve, it may stick. Because actually by then the moon will just be a little bit, probably coming right into Aquarius, actually, on January the 1st or 2nd. So that actually is a moment to make quite a revolutionary New Year's wish, especially, this is going to be a big year for Aquarians, let's be frank. And so you, especially Aquarius, you maybe want, your New Year's wish is particularly potent, I would say.
Mm.
And you know, the other thing about this season is this the first one that we've had without Pluto in Capricorn for years? I mean, it's Capricorn may be feeling strangely untethered,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
or that, you know, there may be a real feeling of liberation for Capricorn, actually. Um,
Mm. Mm. Yes, and interesting that, the new moon, the closest aspect is it's a lovely sextile to Saturn, Capricorn's planet in Pisces again. Here's this Capricorn Pisces mix, which is, for Capricorn, it is sort of thinking about what next and putting some firm foundations in place. For me, there's a possibility of maybe healing a rift as well with that, perhaps linked to siblings, neighbors, relatives, that kind of thing for Capricorn. It feels like a new moon, almost again this season of goodwill, of being nice to people and trying to avoid that Mars.
yeah.
It's whenever, it's strange. I'm looking at it thinking, oh, that's lovely, and then I keep seeing the opposition from Mars to Pluto and thinking, not everything's lovely, but
At
yeah,
least it's a retrograde Mars.
it is a retrograde Mars.
It's a weakened Mars.
It is a weakened Mars. Um, and I do also just want to, I know it's the new moon chart, but I can't help looking at that Mars. Um, it's at this really pivotal place at the moment, opposite Pluto. They've got the Leo Aquarius, but Mars moves back into Cancer as well on January the 6th, and it's back at 29 Cancer, where it was beginning of November when it clashed with Pluto the first time across the Cancer Capricorn axis. I'm a bit surprised at the moment that, being Sun Scorpio, Aries ascendant, Mars retrograde is often a time when something happens and I realize I'm not in control or there's a conflict situation going on. I haven't actually been aware of that this year, perhaps because I've come out of, I don't know, a sort of meditative retreat. But I am seeing quite a few conflict situations with clients and also with friends that seem very resonant of this. And in particular, there's a Cancer Capricorn clash going on that I know of, which is a parent-child clash. And also, seeing people who they're worried about what to do or what to say or how to act. And I think for those people who are caught up in conflict situations, particularly personal ones, and this may be Leo, Aquarius, Cancer, Capricorn, it is probably a time not to fan the flames a bit. That Mars Pluto is going to be exact as well, the opposition again on January the 3rd. So don't fan the flames of it and really kind of try and sort things out in a more amicable way, or not even try and sort things out, actually just take a step back and let things play out.
Yeah, I mean, there does seem to be a theme that I'm seeing at the moment of parent child, like adult parent, adult child, obviously adult parent. What am I talking about? Um, but adult children not speaking to their parents, or there's some kind of rift has happened and or has become evident during this time. And I think that the Mars retrograde, it's interesting it's going across Leo, which is one of the signs we associate with childhood, into Cancer, another sign we associate with childhood. It's an opportunity to take back something you said, to retreat, to say sorry,
Yeah.
to regret, and not try and push people into anything, but to just actually be accepting. And the power comes from being accepting. And I'm thinking again about that shooter who sacrificed himself. It was an act of self-sacrifice, who I'm seeing partly in that Mars retrograde as well, because it was a dramatic gesture of self-sacrifice, which Leo's associated with drama. I'm not suggesting we all go sacrifice ourselves, but I think that we may want to sacrifice our pride at
Mm,
this moment. It's not a
mm,
time to be pride filled, which is the dark side of Leo.
yeah, yeah.
One of the worst aspects of Leo is being too pride filled. So
Mm,
if you have got a conflict in your life, this is everybody, but Leo, Aquarius in particular, or Capricorn, Cancer, don't stand on your pride.
mm, mm. Yeah, I agree. And it's not a time, I don't think it's a time to accuse, to blame.
No.
It's really take your foot off that pedal. It needs a different response. Mars is going to be retrograde. It's an unusually long retrograde. It doesn't turn direct till February 24th. But it's kind of at its peak during this new moon and then January the 3rd, when it's the middle opposition of Mars, Pluto. It's particularly powerful moving into the new year. So maybe that is, going into the new year with kind of new resolution about any ongoing challenge or conflict situation. And wherever the Mars retrograde falls, in Leo and Cancer, it's kind of where are you needing to rework your strategy, I often think, with Mars. It's kind of you turn inwards. It's about more inner change. If you change yourself first, then you can go back out into the world when Mars turns direct with some new gusto and energy and direction. So, I'm thinking for Scorpio, it's career sector. So what is it about your career or future path that you're needing to work on now, ready to launch towards the end of February? And Taurus as well. It's in your home sector right now, home and family. So it may be looking again at what you were wanting to do around the home or the family, getting ready to launch something at the end of February when Mars turns direct.
And for Aquarians, it may be about reconciliation
Yeah.
with someone else. It's in that place of the seventh. It's in the seventh for you. It's in the house of other people.
Yeah.
And it could be that you have to reconcile some kind of relationship, or it could be that someone weak needs your help. And actually, I would say the same is true for for Pisces. It's someone weak might need your help. So be what's the word? Be compassionate and see people's, the wounded people for, what they are, people, and they, and be generous.
Yeah. And show your humanity too, I think, which is really important with this Mars Pluto opposition, isn't it? As we've been talking about some of the themes that have been playing out. Interesting time moving into the new year.
It's actually quite good. I mean, I'm really fascinated by it, and I have to say I love the Prince of Peace. That this is the period, this is the period when we celebrate the Prince of Peace, and that Mars is retrograde in this one, which is the planet of aggression, is doing something different right now. He's not pushing forward. I mean, and then Venus will go into Pisces as well.
Yes.
Fairly soon. And
it's on January the 3rd, Venus moves into Pisces. So this isn't that nice on the day of the Mars Pluto opposition? Venus moves into Pisces, a real symbol of peace and conciliation. And Mercury moves into Capricorn on January the 8th. It quite quickly gets out of Sagittarius and it's into Capricorn. So the inner planets are, Mars is more, it's weakened, and then Venus and Mercury are moving into these more introvert, the water and earth signs. It's I think for all of us, it's kind of a time to really try and take the pace slow and move measured and thoughtfully and consciously actually into 2025.
And don't forget that Pisces is Venus is exalted in Pisces.
Yes.
So it's about universal love, right? And universal
Yeah.
compassion. And then Venus will be making these conjunctions to Saturn and Neptune over the next few weeks. I think at the I want to say, yeah, at the full moon, isn't it going to be making almost, it's nearly at Saturn by the full moon. That one on the 13th of Jan.
Yeah, it is, because it's the 19th of Jan when the Venus-Saturn conjunction's exact. Should I put up the full moon?
Yeah, let's crack on to the full moon. And the other, yeah, speaking of, Pisces and Virgo, as we saw at the solstice, that there was a strong Pisces Virgo thing going on. And the other thing that's happening is that the nodes are shifting, isn't it? From Aries and Libra, which are signs of relationship, but also can be quite a lot of conflict with Aries Libra.
Yeah.
And it's all about how do we reconcile relationships, blah, blah, blah. How do we get, and then we move into Pisces Virgo, which is a completely different feeling. That's where the eclipses will be for the next 18 months or so, will be across Pisces and Virgo. So these two signs, you Pisces and you Virgo, will be having a lot of personal changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And for Gemini Sagittarius, it's the foundations of your life. So it's often a time when you change job, move home, family move out. There's new beginnings in those areas. Wherever the nodes are and the eclipses fall, it's often a time of accelerated growth. I often think of it, you're on the roller coaster of life. You're not just sort of trundling along. Things happen fast, and often because of external events too. So yeah, by the time of this full moon on 13th of Jan, the nodes have made this important shift and they move backwards. So they're at the end of Pisces and Virgo. They're at 29 degrees on this full moon.
And also, they'll be making interesting aspects to, just as they shift, they make really positive aspects to Pluto and Aquarius, at the beginning of January. And that's another reason why it's quite good for making that New Year's resolution. And then they drift back into Pisces and Virgo and make good aspects to Mars retrograde again.
And it's just so interesting looking at this full moon, because there's kind of such a lineup of planets in, there's the South Node Virgo, but planets in Capricorn and Pisces. It's looking kind of quite steady and flowing. And then you look at the moon in Cancer again, lovely water sign. The moon it's its favorite sign, Cancer. It can be nurturing, caring, compassionate in the family sign. But that Mars retrograde is going back into the moon, and will make this powerful opposition with the sun on the 16th of Jan. So it's Mars is just getting its little, it's not, there's something that it's flaring up again at this full moon. So do watch out during, full moons, emotions are heightened, and this one feels particularly emotional. So there could be a bit of drama around during this full moon phase as well, thanks to that Mars clashing with the moon in quite a dramatic way, and then the sun in Capricorn. So for Cancer Capricorn, not the day to choose for, a family powwow or trying to sort things out with the kids or whatever. It's kind of like, don't go there on this full moon. It's volatile, it's fiery because of Mars, tempestuous.
So overall, and what else is this there that towards the end of this month? When does Jupiter turn direct?
Jupiter turns direct not this month. It turns direct on February the 4th, and of course it's kind of, we get this. The sun moves into Aquarius on January the 19th. So it's always, when it moves into Aquarius and Pisces, it's always a little bit earlier in the month. So it's this full moon, which is kind of pivotal, isn't it, in Capricorn season? It's kind of the big thing in January.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think it's the big thing. I think it's interesting that I think there's a possibility of some peace and reconciliation actually,
Mm,
with that, um, because it's making a good aspect to Neptune,
Neptune, yeah.
um, and and Venus is coming through, will be coming up through that Piscean, drifting up through Pisces and coming up to the North Node later in the month.
Mm,
So that's the way forward, is the way of peace and
yes.
to avoid conflict. And also just not to kind of push really hard. Again, that's
Mm,
this, Mars in Cancer,
mm,
Mars retrograde, and Mars continues to be retrograde for another, until the end of Feb. So
yeah.
this is a long time to kind of hold your horses, um, try and reconcile, try and be calm. Although, as you say, I think there's an issue around full moons and calmness that can be really hard.
Yeah, it's not easy, is it? Because I mean, often, people always say, "Why do I feel so weird around the full moon? Why can't I sleep during the full moon?" It's a full moon.
Yeah,
It impacts us. It affects us like it does the tides. It's
yeah,
you do sense the full moons definitely.
yeah,
And also, but the Mars is pivotal here. But what I do want to say also is that Mars will retrograde back away out of the opposition to Pluto. There's a break there, definitely, because it goes back to 17 degrees Cancer. It won't be opposite Pluto when it turns direct. So there is something, again, there's this sense of retreating, moving back. And with so much emphasis on water signs, Cancer, Pisces, it is, I just think the theme of this month coming up is reconciliation. It's
yeah,
doing the loving thing. It's favoring peace. I feel it's really important moving into this new year.
yeah. I agree, and I'm looking at that Mars and having a big fantasy about the retrieval of children.
Yes.
Mars going
Yes.
back into Cancer, because this is the sign of little children,
Yeah.
of and of people. As we were saying earlier, there seem to be quite a few conflicts in families between parents and children. This is the
Mm,
time to retrieve your children, to actually retrieve that relationship.
mm,
And hopefully, and I think one of the things that I have felt now, right now, and this is the beginning, sort of mid-December, and has been one of the things that's been part of this Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde already, is going home.
mm.
Um, and I think all the Syrians will be going home. I think there'll be a massive flood back,
Yeah, I do.
to Syria, uh, which will be incredible to watch. And I think that's also, that's also to do with the nodes going back into Pisces Virgo.
Mm,
Um, when all the Syrians left, it was 2016, and there was a Jupiter Neptune opposition that year. And that seemed to me very, to do with like a flood. You get these
mm,
floods
mm.
with that. And I think that actually that'll be interesting to see whether the Syrians start going back as quickly as that.
Mm. I think it may well
Yeah.
be the case, actually. And just sort of from a star sign, note also Aries Libra. You don't have the nodes um
Yeah.
in your own sign and opposite anymore. So for Aries and Libra, that's quite an important shift. Notice, what it brings to a relationship, perhaps, something significant. And for Libra in particular, you've got Venus exalted in Pisces. So, it is about, again, for Libra in particular, doing kind of the loving thing, peaceful thing. Um, so,
Yeah. So, I mean, guys, be nice.
yeah, we've been saying that quite a lot, haven't we? But it is
Well,
important. It's important.
it's the way of the peaceful warrior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that is the that's the power of doing the peaceful thing,
Mm.
or it's still, Mars is still a warrior, but he's a different kind of warrior.
Yeah, and he goes out of Leo where he can be a bit shouty and dramatic back into Cancer. It's softer. It's softer. Bit crabby sometimes, but
Yeah.
but more peaceful, hopefully. All righty. Well, shall we wrap up then and say goodbye? I do want to say that we're going to be back next year. Hooray! And we're planning to do a year ahead podcast for you, which will go out hopefully on the 8th of January instead of our investigate. So please do come back and listen to what 2025 holds in store. We'll see you soon.
Happy solstice, Christmas, New Year, all of that stuff. Have a great time, everybody.
Yeah, take care. Bye.